Okay, so welcome.
So yeah, thanks Beth for the invite to be with you all tonight. We really appreciate it. My name, as Beth mentioned, is Jake Everwine, and I am acting as the project manager for the Regional School District Planning Board effort. And we are just getting started. It feels like it's been a little bit of whirlwind for about the last week, which has really been the time frame within which we've started our work. And because it was the end of the school year, we thought it might be smart just to try to do some quick meet and greets with key stakeholders in each of the two school communities, just to kind of let folks know what we're up to. Give you a chance to ask questions if you have any, and hopefully give you an overview of where we're headed and where there will be opportunities for people to participate, which is going to be incredibly important, critically important to the process. Again, today is no heavy lifting, again, the idea is just to kind of set the stage for the year. So I'm going to use a PowerPoint that I've scaled down a little bit from a presentation that I used with the Regional School District Planning Board last week, just to kind of keep me focused. And then we'll have a series of prompts we'll sort of put out on the table. If you have any questions as we go throughout the presentation, you're welcome to raise your hand. I'll ask for people on my team just to pay attention. You can certainly, I would suggest that you mute, because we always get a little bit of feedback if someone's talking and we have background noise. So if you're not talking, if you'd mute, that'd be great. If you want to talk though, unmute and just ask the question. It's really fairly informal tonight. Then the third option would be to put a comment into the chat message area, and we'll make sure that if we don't get a chance to answer your question today, we'll be sure to follow up and make sure you get the information that you're looking for. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities to, participate in the process. So let me get dialed up here. I'm going to share my screen and then just get this PowerPoint loaded. So I represent, as mentioned, the project manager for the Regional School District Planning Board. The Regional School District Planning Board was organized about a year ago. And it is a group of individuals, around 24 people, that represent both Berkshire Hills Regional School District and your district, Southern Berkshire Regional School District. And the intent of that group is really to explore ways in which the districts can potentially work together, potentially consolidate, potentially share services in order to create efficiencies and educational programming opportunities for the kids. So our job as a research team really is to help the committee and more broadly the two districts navigate a range of possibilities in our research work this year. So just so you know, this snapshot is, you can see some kind of jumbo at the bottom. We're in the process through the RSDPB putting a website together, which we hope to have launched within about 2 weeks. As I mentioned, we only started around a week ago, so we're moving pretty quickly. But we hope to have a website where we're going to be using that as a location where we're going to be putting documents and meeting minutes and presentations and data and things of that sort. So hope to have that information, a link to you all within a couple of weeks, so people can use that as a resource as we charge forward. So the question is, why is this project even happening? That's often a question I get asked early. And basically the issue that we've been studying for a number of years through the Berkshire County Education Task Force, and very intensely for the last year, is that there is a phenomenon, a pattern of shrinking enrollment across Berkshire County. Certainly it exists in South County, but it exists across the county and really across the Northeast more generally. So we have shrinking enrollment in Berkshire County, specifically in your district. We have stretched resources, and that revenue coming from the state has actually held pretty steady, which means more of the burden of operating schools has been placed on local taxpayers. So the shift has gone from the state providing funding to the local towns and municipalities providing funding. Then third, both of those two things together have led to what we see as constrained or limited educational opportunities for kids. We tend to use the word quality, although I would argue that we have a very high quality schools and districts across Berkshire County. But the question then really still exists is, do we have a broad range of educational opportunities that meet the diverse needs of all of our kids across our communities? So really the charge of the Regional School District Planning Board is to consider these educational and fiscal advisability of a number of consolidation options between the two school districts. Ultimately, we all really care about the future of both our region, our communities, and our kids, of course. So just a couple snapshots just to set the stage. This is from some of our work that we did this past year, and we'll be updating this data set specifically to the two South County districts. But this gives you a sense of sort of what's happening in Berkshire County generally. We've seen a decline in enrollment since 2000, and we're projected to have an ongoing decline in the next 10 years. So quite a few, almost, we're approaching about 50% of our population since 2000 as projected into 2030. So pretty significant decline in student population.
Jake, a quick question that came up. Shrinking enrollments, will they still be expected to be true with COVID-driven relocation?
Yeah, I was on the phone today with a Berkshire Eagle reporter who was doing a story about enrollment, and she asked about the pandemic effect. And I said to her, we don't have 100% understanding of what the pandemic effect will be long term. And so I think there's two things that will influence that. One is, will students who did homeschooling or chose other educational options choose to come back to public schools? So that's one uncertainty that we don't know for sure. So we had a slight spike in homeschooling this past year. And then the second is, will we have immigration from outside the county into Berkshire County as a new destination for families to live, work, and raise a family and send their kids to school?
Doubt it.
So those particular variables are still, the data is still out. And I hope as we get information from the schools in the fall, based on registration numbers, we'll have a better idea of where we stand. We did a comprehensive enrollment report that we published in February, and I'm happy to give anyone an access to it. We gave the Eagle access to it today if anyone wants to scan it. We did a little bit of a comparison between 20 and 21 just to see what the immediate pandemic effect was. And there certainly was a decline in kindergarten enrollment, mostly with families just choosing to keep their kids at home. But we also saw a little bit of a spike in homeschooling and some into the virtual schools, TECA and Greenfield Academy. So this is just setting the stage a little bit here. The second thing is that as enrollment declines, we kind of illustrated that decline. We have increasing expenditures. So the cost of running school, like the cost of living, and certainly inflation is a very pressing concern at the moment. But as enrollment's declining, costs continue to sort of rise at a pretty consistent rate. And so those two things kind of work in opposite, and per pupil expenditures are on the rise. So these are things that just we're certainly paying attention to, recognizing that the burden of paying for schools is falling more and more at the local level. This particular graph shows from 2000 to 2020. Green represents what towns are contributing to pay for budgets. And the blue bar, which is called Chapter 70, is aid from the state. And what you can see if you look at 2000 is that it was, just ballparking, it was about a 50-50 split. But as you project into 220, you can see that more of the burden is being borne by the local taxpayers versus the state. And we don't expect that that's going to change significantly. Although we are hopeful that we can make an argument for some real rural, very unique rural conditions that exist in Berkshire County, and specifically in Southern Berkshire, in which we can make an argument that the cost of running rural schools is more expensive, and as a result, there should be some accounting for that. So these are all things that we'll be certainly working on. Finally, I just wanted to show folks that we also look at educational programming, and we're not here to do a full evaluation of your schools in terms of curriculum and teaching patterns and all that jazz. We're really trying to get a general sense of what programs and services are offered at each of the schools and each of the districts, so that we can have a better understanding of who offers what and where are their opportunities and where are their gaps. This particular graph is illustrative of what we see as a pretty significant gap in Berkshire County. And these are Chapter 74 programs or career vocational technical education programs. They're what you think of as sort of your vocational shops. And as you can see in Berkshire County, this is research we did last year, there are a lot of kids, about 25% of kids are participating in vocational shops in North County, mostly going to McCann Technical School, which is the only regional voc tech school in Berkshire County. About 11% of our kids in Central County go to voc options, mostly at Taconic High School. And in South County, it's less than 3%. There's a couple of programs at Monument. So we see vocational technical education as a gap in South County and something we certainly want to work on and discuss with you all in terms of what you need, what your area needs, and where there might be opportunities to grow and provide options for kids. So those slides are just kind of illustrative of the sorts of things that we're working on. So you have a sense of where we're going. We'll be looking specifically at the two districts to better understand what's happening, and then use that, I think, to hopefully dig into some potential models. The Regional School District Planning Board has been organized under state regulation. And so it's pretty much governed by a set of regulations that identifies how folks serve and how they're chosen. And the entire regionalization process is broken into two phases. And so phase one is on your screen right now. And this is really when a couple of regions, a couple of school districts ask the question, would it make sense for us to think about working together in some way, whether that's having more collaboration or actually formally becoming a single school district. They go into what is considered phase one, which is really early discussions and research and modeling. And so we're in a very early stage of this work in step 1 and 2 right now. And we believe that our work will carry the planning board through step 2, hopefully with a set of potential options for you all to consider as you move into step 3, 4, and 5. And 3, 4, and 5 is really moving towards a preferred model. And then ultimately, if you all feel strongly enough about that preferred model, you bring it to a vote, both at the local level and at the state level. And then if that happens and everyone says yes, then you begin to build your new model. And that is basically described as phase 2. And in phase 2, you have kind of a transition phase in which you're really working on all the systems that make district go, everything from busing and transportation to curriculum to policy to governance and everything in between. So we're quite a ways away from phase 2, again, still in phase 1, but I just wanted everyone to have a general sense of what it is that we're doing and where you may be heading.
Jake, we have another question.
Please.
What other areas is the state studying in this manner? So I think it means like what other regions?
Yeah, so what other regions are involved in regionalization study?
I believe that's the question.
Yeah, I don't know that I have the list. We have a series. I mean, there's been a number of regionalization studies done over the last decade. I know Ken Rock, who's on the phone and part of our team, and I'll introduce them in just a minute, is involved in one right now. Help me with that, Ken. That's in Heath, right?
Yeah, Heath is part of the Mohawk School District, and we had to close our elementary school a couple years ago because it was just too small to be educationally sustainable. And now we're looking to see where is the best place to send our elementary school kids. But there's regionalization projects all over Western Mass, people trying to figure out how to do better education for their kids with the same dollars.
And I think there's also a variety of studies being done in the Cape too, as a very similar set of demographic challenges in terms of enrollment shrinkage and having to sort of operate schools with smaller numbers of kids and stretched resources. So thanks for that question. The mandate of the Regional School District Board is on the screen right now, and it's really to study the fiscal and educational advisability of the possibility of joining districts or having some variation of working together. And ultimately that will look at obviously all the educational programs and what could be accomplished and all the fiscal ramifications of joining. Ultimately, those findings are reported back to the select boards, and if it makes sense, then we'll travel back to the community, as I mentioned earlier, for a formal vote. So as I mentioned, we're in step 1. So our research team is got a number of folks. The people who are directly on the research team are in red, and then we have some support folks who we get access to through the Berkshire County Education Task Force. So I'm on the line as the project manager. I think on the line with us today are Mary Nash, who's helping to do evaluation and outreach, Ken Rock, who's doing research and strategy work, Sarah Carlton. I don't know if Sarah's with us on the line today. But Sarah is helping us to do research and data work. Rob Putnam, who many of you know, is also doing research and with a focus on the education side. We'll be working with an organization called Hanover Research that's helping to do sort of national studies and literature analysis of other ways in which rural communities are responding to these sorts of challenges. And then we'll be hiring specific consultants. Frank Cody's on the line with us today. Frank has a very strong background in career vocational technical ed, and will be helping us to sort of work through that. So all together, we are a team that's worked together for well over a year now, and we all sort of share responsibilities and take this work, I think, incredibly seriously, but very personally. So we're very committed to helping folks work through it. I won't go into everyone's backgrounds. The bios will be on the website, but I want to make sure that we don't spend the entire time with intros. Our work domains are going to include, again, as I mentioned, education, finance, a lot of community outreach, which we'll be talking about, and then an analysis of transportation. I know that travel time is one of those hot button items for folks. You know, we don't want our kids on buses for too long, particularly the young kids. We believe in that too. We want, I think, age appropriate practices in our schools and in our communities. Our tasks are, again, right now we're going to be looking at a large volume of data that is generated in both of the schools and school districts. Again, looking at educational feasibility in terms of what's possible, looking at operations, doing outreach, and then ultimately evaluating these options for community input. And I'll walk you through how we're going to phase and stage this in just a minute. Our deliverable will be a report that hopefully will evaluate a series of options, will reflect a wide range of community perspectives, and have hopefully enough information for folks to make an informed decision about how they want to move forward. If we've done our job, you'll have a sense of where you want to go next. And just to be crystal clear, we have no idea. We don't have any leanings one way or the other. We're just going to evaluate a series of models and bring you all, hopefully, you know, that old legal pad with a plus and a minus side, looking, you know, where are the advantages to doing a particular model and where are the disadvantages. All right, so our research models, the three models that we've been charged to look at, just to be crystal clear, are the following. We've been asked to look at what it would look like if both Berkshire Hills and Southern Berkshire combined into a single regional school district, so one school district. The second model we've been asked to look at is what would happen if we combine the two high schools. So for example, grades 9 through 12, and then we maintain independent elementary schools in the two home districts. And the third would be what would happen if we maintained autonomy, the two districts as they currently exist, but we had more formal collaborative agreements between the districts so that they could remain independent, but benefit from the opportunities and resources that they each have, right? So those are the three primary models that we're being asked to look at. I don't know if anyone has any questions on that. It's always a pause point for me because I want to make sure people realize that although we're looking at a lot of things, we've been charged very specifically at sort of evaluating these three options. But as I said to the board this past week, there's a lot of space between these options, and it could certainly be that the best option is an option that falls between these. So we don't know for sure, but we're going to start with these three and then hopefully draw the best aspects of you know, what the solutions that come to the surface.
Jake, there's another question from someone who says, is new to the district. What is different or more actionable now versus a year or two ago, since these conversations have come up in the past?
Is it what now, Mary?
what is the difference, or why is it more actionable now than a couple of years ago? Just knowing that these conversations have come up in the past about regionalization.
Yeah, and I mean, regionalization studies, we're doing some literature study, and Rob has been sort of combing through old studies that go back to, 20 years, probably longer, right, Rob? And regionalization doesn't have a good track record in the state, although we know it has happened. But I think the pressures right now are more intense than they've been, primarily driven by shrinking enrollment. The question we often, that a lot of districts are asking themselves is, how small can we be and still operate and offer a comprehensive program, and B, be able to manage our finances in a reasonable way. So I think that is where some of the urgency points are really pressing in. The task force originally came to the table, this is a good 6 years ago, because of fiscal pressures. I would expect fiscal pressures will continue. Right now, we seem to be in a little bit of a reprieve because a lot of money was printed by the federal government, and there's a lot of money flowing into municipalities and school districts at the moment. But we all recognize that that won't continue forever, and we'll likely be in a spot where there will be pressure again. Hopefully that answers the question to some degree. So the other three considerations we just want to mention is that we are also talking about ways in which we might think of alternative models like school unions, which is having sort of a common backbone across the two schools districts, but allowing some degree of independence within each of the two districts. The second thing, which I already mentioned, which is on everyone's mind, is really thinking about ways in which we can scale career pathway or career vocational technical education in the two South County districts. And then third is there's a real interesting phenomenon, particularly in South County, mostly in South County, where a lot of kids are moving between districts. And so that happens through both choice and tuition. And so we'll be studying that, because we also know you have feeder districts in Lee, Lenox, Richmond, and Farmington River that all have an influence on the number of kids in your district and how programming can be offered. So those are other things which would be part of the conversation research. All right. So our research questions basically is just, we have a really broad question. Can some form of district collaboration or consolidation or even regionalization between the two districts improve educational access and opportunity, stabilize finances, improve efficiencies, generate innovative solutions versus competitive models?
What do you want, darling?
Lead to inclusive and
Is that
equitable.
the science?
That's science, yeah.
We got someone on without mute. If you can, if you're not speaking, if you put yourself on mute, that would be great. And then obviously improving, the array of high quality opportunities for kids so that they can be successful beyond high school. Our specific tasks, as we mentioned, and I feel like I'm repeating myself now, but we'll be evaluating the three models, looking specifically at finance, education, and operations. The middle bullet is kind of an important one. We have to establish what I refer to as a value proposition. The value proposition is really asking the question, is this worth doing? Because if it's not worth doing, it won't happen. And so we have to look at both the advantages and the benefits, and also the barriers or the challenges, which could potentially be achieved or exist in any one of these models. And if the barriers or challenges outweigh the benefits, then it's probably not going to happen. So that's the sort of analysis we expect to be doing. One thing I've learned in sort of the month I've been on the project, sort of thinking about it and writing the proposals and talking to people, is that we want to do as much public outreach as we can do with the time we have available.
Rather hard to read a paper.
Yeah. And so we'll be talking about ways in which that's going to happen. All right, so our work is going to be staged over about a 30-week period from now until early February. And so this summer, we're sort of setting the stage and we're doing pre-work, which is getting to know your district, interacting with folks. And September through November, we'll do a lot of our benchmarking work and trying to run the various models that exist. And then in December through February, if there is a lean towards a particular model, we'll likely do a little bit of a deeper dive and trying to understand how that model might play out in terms of both advantages and challenges. In each of these phases, there's going to be community opportunities to have touch points. Right now, we're doing what we call the meet and greet tour. This past week, we met with folks, administrators, and Beth was great to get us access to teachers, administrators, a group of students, her central office staff are doing the same thing in Berkshire Hills. In the fall, we hope to do comprehensive surveys of different stakeholder groups. We're going to then follow the surveys up with focus groups. A focus group is a little different than what we're doing today because it really has a very scripted set of questions, which we'll be using with a smaller group of individuals to sort of go deeper on some of the themes we're hearing. And then we hope to have some opportunity to do some community convenings, which is bringing people together to maybe use some facilitator or design protocols to work through some of the options and some of the data that we're uncovering or certainly organizing. So those are the ways in which we hope to engage the community to the best that we can. It's probably never enough. But we will do our best to get voices into this process because that's critically important. It doesn't matter, as I mentioned, if we come up with the best plan in the world or some model that seems to solve every issue that folks have raised and is the magic bullet. If people don't like it and don't feel like they were part of the development of it, it won't stick. So we believe strongly in that and engaging the public, you all. So our final report will have all these things in it, and I'll certainly be happy to give Beth a copy of this PowerPoint so you have these. And it's going to be analysis of the various things, the consideration of the options, and then hopefully where we go next. So, so I have some questions, and I've got a few we're going to put on the screen, and I'd ask maybe, I know we have a lot of people on the line. I'm not even sure how many, there's 50, wow, 50 people on the line. So normally this is not a great way to do a conversation, but I'd be interested in hearing some feedback from you all on some of these prompts, or you can throw any commentary or answers you have in the chat if you want to type them out. But we're interested sort of early on. I mean, maybe I should just stop first and say, do you have any questions on anything I've offered to you all today, just in terms of holistically what we're up to?
There were several in the last few that went in the chat we didn't get to, so I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, why don't you throw those out?
So the first thing is, who's paying for all the, this project and all the research costs?
Yeah, so the project is being paid through primarily, I think, two funding resources. One is each of the 8 towns has contributed funds towards the project, and then both the Regional School Planning Board and the Berkshire County Education Task Force wrote regionalization grants. It's a fund code 191. We both were able to obtain those funds, and we are pooling funds to support this project. So I'd say I want to do percentage wise, it's probably 2/3 of it is being paid through grants through the state and about 1/3 at the local level.
If I might,
Please.
my name is Susan Batchelder, and I was the chair of the Historical Commission in Egremont.
Hi,
What you
Susan.
might not be aware of is that the Southern Berkshire Regional School District was in fact the first district ever put together in the Commonwealth in 1959.
That's great.
At that point, there was some discussion about whether this was a good idea, and that conversation has gone on with various degrees of intensity ever since 1959. I'm very happy to know that you visited the Sheffield campus. I would like to invite you to the Egremont School, which is also part of the district. It is one of the probably last one-room schoolhouses in full operation in the United States, in a historic district. So the preservation and protection of a viable educational curriculum in this town, in this building, is a vital
$30.
concern to this community. With that said, certainly having to figure out how to control costs will have to occur, being that we have the concern of the students with how do we supply them with good educational environment as well as a sound administration. And it would seem to me, if I might, that the second possibility of dealing with a more administrative coordination and maintaining the integrity of the community schools might be the way to go. But of course, as you point out, we're a long way from that. Please do feel to reach out to our school committee members and or our Board of Selectmen to come and see us. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And any history will be very helpful too.
Oh,
Okay.
I can send that to Beth to forward to
Okay.
you. We
Yeah,
we
Rob
have a
is
full
doing-
written history on it.
Yeah, that'd be great. Rob is doing some look backs right now. I always think it's important to set the context by sort of knowing what's come before and
Absolutely.
building on that. So
And in fact, I'm your neighbor. I live in Alford. So it's,
Oh, okay, Rob.
we have to connect. Maybe I can just stop at your transfer station, or you could stop at ours, and
Okay.
we'll connect.
All right, very good.
So these first two questions kind of go hand in hand, maybe not perfectly, but what are the things that that you see as potential opportunities or exciting, and where do you see things where that are potentially challenging or concerning? And I think I just heard one from Susan about the preservation of this historic one-room schoolhouse is certainly a concern. Others that folks may have on their minds, or
There have
again,
actually been quite a number of comments, Jake.
oh, great. Okay, great. Why don't you read a few of them off?
Okay, here we go.
Can't see the comment.
So here we went here. A larger, someone said a larger student body for older kids is exciting. Closing of smaller elementary schools is scary.
Okay,
Why are we talking about, you want to go one by one?
just a couple, just maybe.
Okay. Why are talking about a merger when Southern Berkshire has smaller schools that can first be consolidated? Another one, piggybacking on the other, excited for more educational opportunities for my kids, more athletic programs, more diversity. Then a number of comments about small schools we should visit to Marlborough, and also the value of small schools.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that feedback. So, this is a little unfair to ask you, but I always like to get a knee-jerk reaction at the beginning of a project. So we've been asked to basically look at these three models, recognizing there's a lot of space between those three options. A fully formed single regional school district. The second is a combination of the two high schools, and third is maintenance of independent districts while we increase formal collaboration across the district. I'd be curious about your reactions, the 50 or so folks who are on the line, to any one of those as being something that is intriguing or attractive, and something that is, there's just no way I could get behind that. Based on what you know now, and you'll know more obviously as we come out the back end and we have a better sense of what each of these will offer. So if Mary or Rob, if you see anything popping up in the chat, I'd let me share.
Yeah, there are actually a lot of people taking the opportunity to answer your questions or the prompts in the chat. Could you simultaneously see your screen and the chat?
I'm having a hard time getting there, but let me see if I can pull that off. All right. Okay, I can. Now you can see it too. Great.
Yeah, it just seems that there are a number of other, there was an argument, a comment that something that excites people, the possibility of more vocational opportunities. Also, I think we need to clarify the three options again, because there was a question, is this, are we talking about Southern Berkshire consolidating or a full merger?
Just gonna boil the water right now.
So let me, I'll walk through the three options again. And again, I just really, I have to be very careful about every word I choose, because I think sometimes people will assume anything that I say is how it's going to be, which is not the case. But the three models we've been asked to look at are the potential consolidation of Berkshire Hills Regional School District and Southern Berkshire Regional School District into a single regional school district. So I haven't talked about names or what schools stay or who the mascot is or where the football team's located or any of that, just that two districts become one. That's it. The second option is that the two high schools become one. Again, haven't talked about where the kids are going to be, what building, just that you'll have a single high school that houses kids in both districts, not grades 9 through 12 probably. And then the elementary schools would stay tethered to their home districts. And then the third option is that you continue to operate independent school districts as they exist, your two regional school districts, but you create more formal collaborative mechanisms and structures and agreements across your district. So for example, you share a curriculum coordinator, or you have teachers who can work in both districts, or you allow students to take courses across both districts. Those sorts of things are potential ways in which you might have agreements that still allow for independence and autonomy. So those are the three options.
If I might, would you feel that now that we've kind of had this enforced experiment of long distance learning, that this might be able to be a great way to look at option number 3 in terms of the next step for helping, for example, AP math students get classes out of MIT throughout the district without necessarily having to be too abruptly removing physical facilities.
Yeah, no question. I think there are a lot of things that were incredibly challenging throughout the last year and a half. And there are some incredibly positive lessons that we learned from the last year and a half. And one of those is, I think the potential for technology to certainly provide opportunities, not full substitution, but certainly provide opportunities for kids to get access to things they wouldn't necessarily get. I think we've demonstrated that. The task force this year ran an initiative that involved 8 districts called the Berkshire Remote Learning Initiative, and we shared a learning management system. It was very frustrating at times, but I think what happened by the end of the year is we really made some incredibly positive forward gains as teachers across district were working together. We have a study group now talking about sharing courses across those schools, whether they're elective courses, which are unique to a school, or whether they're advanced placement courses. Those are certainly ways in which we believe that technology could flatten the geography that exists in Berkshire County.
And I think that's,
even in
we have
Berkshire
a lot of geography here.
Exactly, right.
We had a study done maybe about 10 years ago. I think we all traipsed into the Mahawi to listen to this report on how we could consolidate. And the first thing they said was, we're not going to talk about transportation.
Yeah.
And everybody said, how can you know, that's all there is in Berkshire, you know, is the issue of transportation.
We did a lot of work this past year, and I do have a mini study in which it's very basic. So you have to look at some of the data that we use with context, right? Recognizing that it's got limitations. But we literally did a point-to-point drive time between schools, so we could get a sense of where there were potential opportunities to share and where it was just ridiculous, right? So we're not going to be exchanging kids between Mount Greylock and Mount Everett. It's never going to happen physically. But as you point out, technology certainly has created, access points that we didn't have earlier. And I think the technology, the sophistication around technology has really grown. But the other thing I will say is that there still is quite a bit of opportunity for physical exchanges across the county. Obviously, South County offered some of the more pressing distances, some of the more challenging distances that we saw in that transportation driving distance study that we did. So thanks.
Hello, can I ask a question? This is Barbara Kalish.
Of course.
I've been listening and I'm new to this, so I apologize if my question's redundant, but I've heard a lot of discussion here about solutions. And what I'm hearing is the problem is funding or money. I don't know if that's completely accurate, but I haven't heard anybody state the goals. And I'm wondering if we've set the goals both for money and education and all of the implications of those, because how do we match the solution to our goals if they aren't clearly stated?
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly the mandate, if you go back to the study, and I'm not sure this is going to answer your question. So the mandate of the study is of the the Regional School District Planning Board is obviously to study the educational and fiscal possibilities of these various models. The goal for me always, I think for our team, is always offering the best possible educational program to our kids.
Have we defined what best possible means? I mean, is it number of kids getting into Harvard, or is it the number of kids that are happy in school, or the level of the SATs? I don't know. What's the best?
So, yeah, and it's an excellent question. And we discussed this at one of our meetings recently. What does it mean to have a quality education system? So I wrote a little section about quality in one of our reports, which I'd be happy to send to anyone. Quality is sometimes in the eye of the beholder, and you're right. Is it acceptance to college? Is it acceptance to college and the ability to then complete college because you've got the skills and readiness to do that? Is it competitive colleges? Is it career pathways? Is it earnings 20 years out, 10 years out? I mean, is it just happiness, right? General well-being. So I'd be happy to send that to you, but for me, are we providing kids with really a range of opportunities that position them, I think, to pursue, to be challenged, to be connected with their peers, and to be ready and inspired for the next phase of their life. I always talk about kids exiting high school with some sense of confidence and readiness for the next thing that they're going to encounter, and then the preparation to be successful. So as somebody who holds a vocational license and a doctoral degree, I believe that both career pathways and academic pathways are equally important and relevant. So yeah, I'm not really answering your question, but I think it's an important one to ask. And I'd be happy to send you what I wrote.
I'd like to know, yeah. I guess my bigger question is, how do we know if the final results of the report are successful without completely understanding the consensus and goals? And I don't mean the big overriding one, which you mentioned, you articulated really, really well.
Yeah.
But the goals from how much money do we need to save? What is a 5 and 7 year anticipated plan? Do we think that the population will actually be continuing to go down, or might it go up? And I'm speaking now from experience. I came from a school district where the year before my son started kindergarten, they closed 5 schools. And by the time he was graduating high school, they were building 3 new ones. So are we looking, how far out are we looking, and what yardstick is being applied? Because what the problem is today may not be in 5 years. It may be a different problem.
Yes.
So, and then there are the subcategories of transportation, as you mentioned earlier, and grade appropriate environments.
Mhm.
So I just was wondering if we have the litmus test.
Yeah, well, one of the things that we presented to the board last week was kind of a preliminary list of evaluation criteria that we could set against the various models. I certainly have ways in which I would look at it, but I need to partner with folks in the community to get a sense of how you feel we should be evaluating the various models. What's important to you? So
Yeah,
that-
how are we doing that across the general population, or is it just the board?
Yeah, I mean, right now my focus is probably on engaging with the board on that particular question. But I would imagine that if we do the convening, which we intend to do, and we're bringing options to the table and we're saying these are the evaluation criteria that we benchmark the options against, or we evaluate them against. Certainly there could be other ways to think about it that I would hope the public could bring into this space. You raised a lot of good points, and I can't keep track of them all in terms of responding, because I'd love to respond to every single one of them.
That's a thesis, I know. I just wanted to raise the questions.
Yes.
I honestly wasn't expecting a total answer to all of that, and I appreciate your response. Thank you.
Yeah, it's such an imperfect thing too. We come into this process as a research team with a high degree of humility about all of this. So
The more you know, the less you know.
we wish we had the answer, but we know that it's going to be a pathway that takes us left and right all the way through. Rob, you have a point to make a point?
Yeah, I think that what we're going to do is at the conclusion of the meeting, we're going to download all of the chat and make sure that we come up with answers to the things that are being the questions that are being asked, and remark on these, and we can get back and make this available through Beth.
Sure, that's great. So just to kind of keep us moving forward, and again, a lot of these prompts were just to sort of our earlier conversations with the admin team and the teachers and the students who were in the room, and we were able to have more of an informal conversation. So we sort of picked and choose these various prompts, but we did ask the kids and the teachers, what are you proud of in your district, and what do you think, where do you think are there gaps or there needs that you think, need to be addressed or could be addressed or could certainly enhance the district itself. So those will certainly be prompts I'd love to hear more from you all about as you think about, your schools and your school district or your kids' experience in the school district. I certainly have my own on my own kids' school, and we are also in the county. I kind of weave in a little bit of personal background on all of us. All of us are really from the county on our research team, or connected to the county in some way, with probably the exception of Sarah, who worked for the Department of Education and the data team. So we're really happy to have her expertise. But I've raised 5 kids in Berkshire County, raising 5 kids, I should say. And I actually taught my first year in public education in Mount Everett. So I have really, really fond memories of South Berkshire as a incredibly important year in forming sort of my educational philosophy. So I'm going to jump to the second set of prompts, and I'm just going to throw them all up on the screen. The second set of prompts is really, more about ways to get parents and or community members involved in hearing. So these are the prompts, and our questions basically are, do you feel that folks have a good understanding of actually what we're up to, what we're doing? And I would assume that for some of you, you're getting a deeper understanding tonight. How would you suggest that we involve parents in the work we're doing, or keep people up to speed and communicating with them? And then we always struggle to some degree with getting a range of parents, and actually that happens with the student body too, that really represents a diverse range of backgrounds and experiences to the table. So as we're forming our research plan, our outreach plan, I'd love any thoughts you have about innovative or interesting ways to reach our community, reach your community, and specifically, parents and community members. in the next, 6 to 9 months. We were talking with the kids, and Rob made the suggestion. One of the kids we asked them that question. They said, well, you should get us all together. We should do more of this, have more conversation and do some activities and sort of, talk about ideas and possibilities. And then Rob said, wouldn't it be awesome if we got groups of kids from both schools together, really, to sort of talk at the same time about, what are your experiences at your school, and really start, exchanging ideas and using each other as kind of a way to inspire possibilities. So anyways, there may be things we're not thinking of. So
There
if you
is
have any
actually
thoughts on that,
one for Egremont.
What'd you say?
There is one for Egremont I'm fully aware of, and that is, I think, nearly half of our population is over 50.
Mhm.
And so it would be a very good idea to make sure you actively engage our Council of Aging, and reach out to our senior citizens, because in my case, for example, my next gen is in Florida. I do not see my little ones. So for me to have the opportunity to participate in anything in my village school, especially, in which I'm strongly engaged, but any school activities, it's important that especially this age group that's paying the taxes, be asked to participate. And I don't think that invitation has really come strongly enough from any of the districts. And it would be important for you guys to reach out to us.
Great, thank you. All right, I'm just looking at some of the comments here. So phone systems, surveys, great, thank you. All right, great. So that was prompt number 2. We'll just jump to the third one. I'm not even paying attention to time, but we are close to an hour. So let me just throw the third one up here. All right, so these were just some sort of closing thoughts. Are there potential deal breakers we should be aware of? Just real things that people are like, if you do that, there's no way we'll get behind anything you got to say. We know that the complexity of moving kids. I was a superintendent for a number of years, and there's an old adage that if you want to, you need to get your letter of resignation ready if you do one of two things. One is redistrict your school district, move kids from building to building, or close a school. Those are the two things that will end your career in that particular district. So I understand the importance of schools to the identity of communities, and how important that is. So we get it. But we really are curious about what you all think of in terms of things we should be aware of, in terms of, things that could be really problematic in terms of possible solutions and models. And secondly, what will compel this to make it worth doing? What are the things that folks really need to hear that would excite folks to say, yeah, we're doing pretty good right now and we're sort of managing okay, but that seems intriguing enough, that really inspiring enough, or that could really offer some amazing possibilities for our kids in our community if we did that, to move to change, which as you all know is very difficult. So we certainly would love to hear from you all. I'll be honest with you, and I always put this a little bit of bias on the table early. What brought us to the table, as I mentioned earlier, from the very beginning, was a financial crisis, which happened and will likely happen again. It's cyclical, as you all know. And there'll be financial pressures, which everyone will be panicking to pass budgets and figure out ways to deal with tax rates and all the stuff that gets sticky at the town level. But what I'm really interested in is if we're able to create efficiencies and fiscal efficiencies, can we hold costs stable so that we can reinvest funds in a way that improves educational opportunities and access for kids, and certainly, for our communities. That to me, this notion of a reinvestment model is more inspiring when I think about it. What can we do if we do these things together and create efficiencies that then free space and resources up to build stuff. So does that make sense? All right, so I like that track and field. I got a track son, so I can appreciate that as a runner. Thanks for the last comment. I think it's from Jen. Great. I'm going to, because I'm realizing I didn't put it on the PowerPoint, I'm going to put my email in here. Okay, so there's my email. You're all welcome to email me. I'm so crazy that I'll even give you my phone number. There it is. I don't always answer it. When I'm running, I don't answer it, but but you're welcome to text me if you have a question, or you can shoot me an email. I'm pretty good on email. If you want have any questions or want access to any resources or any of the research we've done the last year. Otherwise, I would just ask that you continue to ask questions, participate when we put information out. When the website gets up and out, we hope to really start pressing information out to you all, and then look for ways as we start to roll out things like the surveys and the focus groups and hopefully the convenings in the fall to participate. And again, if you have any ideas, like the Council on Aging, ways in which we can get access to groups, that's another really great way to get the message to the community, to groups of folks who wouldn't normally plug into the traditional sort of school communication pipeline. All right. So Beth, I'm good. I don't know if you have other things or other questions in here, team, that you all can see.
It was just a request earlier on that we would make the slides available. So maybe if we can get them to Beth, she can get them out to the parents.
Yep.
I was just going to say, if you want to, any materials or summaries of, questions, thoughts, chats, and responses type of thing, we can put up or send out to the group, because we have a page on our webpage as well.
Yeah. The other thing I'll just mention is Mary will be developing a lot of the outreach tools. And we always struggle with the right survey questions to ask. Surveys are so tricky because everyone is being over surveyed right now, and in this pandemic environment, I think we were surveyed every 15 minutes. But we do want good quality questions that hopefully help to get at what people are thinking and feeling and sort of aspiring to or concerned about. So anyways, if you have questions that you think, we should be asking, again, feel free to shoot me an email, throw it in the chat, or we'd love to hear from you all. Maybe some of the questions we asked today might be those which would be, worth asking to folks. I did see a question here: will the community get a chance to contribute thoughts, or just parents and staff? Our strategy right now is that we're probably going to develop 4 surveys. So one that is focused on families, one that is focused on community members, one that's focused on students and alum, and the third on staff and faculty. So they have a lot of repeat and overlap questions, but they're customized for that particular audience. So it is our intent to try to get to everybody.
But also, the reality is that this is a community decision. Ultimately, this will be a vote by the community. So you absolutely have all sorts of say in what this looks like. Stay involved and interested and engaged, and let's see what that could look like.
I am looking at any sort of timeline being discussed. So the timeline, this is from Tina. We expect that we're going to do the context building in the summer, and then a little deeper research in the fall, then hopefully be buttoning up some sort of set of analyses and or recommendations as we get towards January and February. And that's the timeline. And then at that point, it really gets kicked back to the Regional School District Planning Board to make a decision on how they want to move it forward. They may need more work, they may need more research, or they may decide that it's not worth moving forward with, or that they have a model that is just incredibly compelling that they want to advance. So a lot of different ways that they can go, but our timeline as research team is hopefully to deliver all this by sometime in sort of midwinter. So I got a question from Sarah. Beth, you just tell me how long you want to go, okay? Because I don't.
It's totally up to you. This is your time, and if you're willing to answer questions, that's fine.
Sure, yeah.
If you want to wrap it up because we have to get up in 5 minutes to go back, that's also fine, and we can follow up. So I'm open to any.
Yeah, no. Sarah asked a question about our team. I don't know if you want to take 2 minutes and just get quick. We could have everyone just quickly tell who they are and what they're up to. You want to do that? So Ken, I know you got a jet, so why don't you start?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My background is I live in Pioneer Valley and Heath, which is almost up to Vermont. Just go over the mountain. I'm down in North Adams. Worked in mostly Western Mass districts for about 30 years. I'm retired. I was a mill and house carpentry teacher at Franklin County Technical School for 13 years. I ran the Southwest Vermont Career Development Center up in Bennington, Vermont for 3 years, attached to Mount Anthony High School. I was superintendent at Blue Hills Regional Technical School outside Boston for 5. Then 2 years at Joe Montague in a K-12 district as an interim superintendent. And the last 12 years, I've been working as a retiree half-time with the Department of Education, assisting school districts with leadership, ELA, math, all those sorts of things. And really happy to be involved in this project. I think it's very promising. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Mary?
Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Nash, and I'm going to be doing the community outreach portion of the work, organizing surveys of the different groups and focus groups and some community gatherings. I'm a consultant in the region, and my specialty area is needs assessment and program evaluation. I've done work in the area with early childhood, K-12 and higher education, and also some work in the healthcare field. And prior to my consulting career was the executive director of a couple of educational programs. So looking forward to working on this with everyone and hearing opinions.
Rob?
Hi there, I'm Rob Putnam. I live in the town of Alford.
That's all you need, right?
Oh yeah, I have the shortest. I've been here for about 18 years or something like that. But I too am a retired educator, but I have, I spent 25 years teaching and being an administrator in Berkshire Hills. I did a number of years up in Central Berkshire. I've done a number of years at Adams Cheshire. Recently, I was an interim superintendent at Mount Greylock and a interim principal at Richmond. And my background is in, my doctorate is in curriculum studies. And so, which basically is looking at curriculum programs and assessment and things of that sort. Yeah, no, I'm very much interested in how this all goes. I'll be doing a lot of the historical work. I've actually
And the ed programming work.
yeah, ed program historical.
And then Frank?
Hi, I'm Frank Cody. I started my career as a culinary arts instructor for the old South Berkshire Educational Collaborative back in the 80s. When Lee Lennox Monument and Mount Everett were sending students into the different programs like allied health, culinary, there was a maintenance program. From there, I just kind of went up the ladder of education, dean of students, vice principal, assistant superintendent, and retired as a superintendent of a vocational regional high school down at the Cape. And been doing this about 30 years.
Sarah Carlton, who's not on the line, is recently retired from the Department of Ed. She started working with our team while she was still working with the department. And Sarah has been part of the data and research team. at the Department of Education, and she was instrumental in developing a couple of really key tools. The DART tool and the radar tool. I wish I knew what the acronyms were, but they allow for comparison of
Radar.
wide data sets across districts and across communities. So she pulls a lot of our data from Department of Education, Department of Revenue, and helps us really to organize it, put it in a form that we can use. And then as I mentioned earlier, I'm Jake Everwine. I have been an educator since 1993 when I started at Mount Everett. Before that, actually was in the construction field, which is where I still maintain my vocational license from, but my undergrad degree is actually in biology and chemistry. And so I taught a year at Mount Everett, but it was driving an hour and a half to get there. And I then joined Pittsfield schools, and I taught science at Taconic High School for a decade. Became the principal of Pittsfield High School, and then was the superintendent of schools for 5 years. From there, I went to MCLA, and I was a dean of the college, and did a lot of work in the community, which was really what brought me full circle into thinking more widely about the impact of schools and changes in Berkshire County on the schools, which has really led me back into this research work in trying to support communities and navigating all of this so that we can ensure that we have the highest quality educational systems, so that we have a robust community where people want to work, live, and raise their kids. So yeah, so that's the background of the team.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, and we will have bios on the website. Yeah, I think that's it. Great. Thanks, Sarah. All right, so we'll get the PowerPoint to Beth if there's no other questions. And we really super appreciate y'all being here. This is a great turnout. What a great turnout.
was
And
great.
your questions and your prompts have been fantastic. You all have set the standard. We'll have to see if Berkshire Hills can match. So
The gauntlet has been thrown down. There it is.
yeah, it's been thrown down, right?
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
And thanks, Beth, again for the time tonight.
Thank you,
For
Beth.
sure.
Yes, great.
All right, folks, we'll see y'all tomorrow.
Take care, everybody.
Very good.